Europe in 2025 is at a crossroads. While some nations continue to thrive in innovation, diplomacy, and growth, others are facing a perfect storm of economic turmoil, political instability, and demographic crises. This isn't a prediction, it's already happening. Today, we're diving into the fastest collapsing European countries in 2025, breaking down the critical issues shaking their foundations and the ripple effects across the continent. Let's start with a country that once stood as the poster child for post-Soviet transformation.
1. Moldova.
Moldova is a small country, but its problems are anything but. In 2025, it continues to grapple with staggering levels of emigration, losing up to 1% of its population annually. Young people are fleeing the country in search of jobs and stability, mostly to Romania, Germany, and Italy. The Transnistria issue remains unresolved, and with tensions between Russia and the West showing no signs of cooling, Moldova is caught in the middle. Economically, Moldova remains the poorest country in Europe by GDP per capita. Inflation has eased compared to the highs of 2022 to 2023, but purchasing power remains extremely low, and energy insecurity continues to plague the country. Corruption scandals and weak institutions further erode public trust, making meaningful reforms almost impossible.
2. Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Next up is Bosnia and Herzegovina, a nation held hostage by its own political structure. 3 decades after the Dayton Agreement ended the war, Bosnia is still divided along ethnic lines. The Republika Srpska, led by Milorad Dodik, has accelerated its push toward autonomy, even threatening full secession. In 2025, the international community watches nervously as this internal fragmentation edges closer to open crisis. Unemployment remains among the highest in Europe, especially among youth, and the brain drain is relentless. Despite being a candidate for EU membership, political deadlock and institutional paralysis make progress feel like an illusion. Without radical reform and genuine reconciliation, Bosnia risks becoming a failed state in slow motion.
3. Belarus.
After the controversial 2020 elections and subsequent protests, Belarus has become increasingly isolated from the West. President Alexander Lukashenko clings to power through repression, backed heavily by Russia. In 2025, Belarus is more authoritarian than ever, with mass arrests, suppression of the press, and near-total control over civil society. Economically, sanctions have devastated key sectors like potash exports and manufacturing. Many Belarusian businesses have relocated to neighboring countries, and inflation remains volatile. The war in Ukraine has also drawn Belarus further into Russia's orbit, making it more of a client state than an independent nation. Its sovereignty is hanging by a thread.
4. Hungary.
Once seen as a rising star in Central Europe, Hungary under Viktor Orban is now raising serious alarms. In 2025, the country is more politically isolated than ever within the European Union. Its continued drift toward authoritarianism, attacks on judicial independence, and controversial laws targeting NGOs and minorities have triggered multiple sanctions and funding freezes from Brussels. The economy, which once benefited from EU integration, is now suffering from reduced foreign investment, currency devaluation, and declining investor confidence. The Hungarian forint has seen repeated instability, while inflation and housing costs remain persistently high. Orban's close ties with China and Russia also risk Hungary's position in NATO and the EU.
5. Ukraine. The war continues.
While Ukraine has shown incredible resilience and unity, the toll is enormous. Infrastructure in the east is devastated, millions remain displaced, and the military conflict with Russia rages into its 3rd year. Despite massive Western support, the economy is in shambles. Energy shortages, inflation, and reconstruction costs are sky high. Corruption, while somewhat reduced in wartime, remains a hurdle for international investors and aid agencies. And while the EU has offered fast-track membership talks, actual accession remains years away. The psychological toll of constant warfare, coupled with a population decline from both emigration and casualties, is pushing the country to its limits.
6. Serbia.
Serbia walks a geopolitical tightrope. As of 2025, it remains outside the EU but is heavily integrated with both Western and Eastern powers. Its refusal to fully align with EU sanctions against Russia and ongoing tensions in Kosovo have created serious diplomatic friction. The country's economy is stagnant, and political power remains centralized around President Aleksandar Vučić. Critics accuse the government of eroding media freedom and democratic norms, while nationalist rhetoric is on the rise. Protests over corruption and environmental concerns have grown, but are often suppressed or ignored. Serbia's balancing act may soon tip into full-blown instability.
7. Bulgaria.
Bulgaria is one of the most quietly struggling EU members. It consistently ranks among the most corrupt countries in the bloc, and despite being part of the EU since 2007, it remains outside the Schengen area and the Eurozone. Political instability has defined the last several years, with frequent elections and shifting coalitions. In 2025, inflation and a declining population continue to plague the country. Public trust in institutions is low, and far-right nationalism has gained ground. Brain drain is a major issue, with thousands of young Bulgarians leaving each year. Without structural reforms, Bulgaria risks becoming a hollow state propped up by remittances and EU funding. The bigger picture. What do all these countries have in common? Weak institutions, political deadlock, demographic crises, and deep divisions, whether ethnic, political, or geopolitical. Some are crumbling under the weight of unresolved conflicts. Others are being hollowed out by corruption or drifting further from democratic norms. This isn't about sensationalism, it's about recognizing the warning signs. While Western Europe remains relatively stable, the fault lines running through the east and southeast of the continent are widening. If left unchecked, these collapses won't just affect individual countries, they'll reshape the future of the entire European project. So, as 2025 unfolds, the question isn't just who's collapsing. It's whether Europe as a whole is prepared to face it, or if the cracks will keep spreading.